Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I am C. Pallavi Agarwal, moderator of this VCM. We are delighted to welcome you all to the VCM being organized by Continuing Professional Education Committee of ICI. It's my pleasure to be moderator for the today's session on VCM on how to master in drafting business document and master on GST. Our eminent speaker will talk about the two emerging areas of professional interest. Knowing how to write effectively is necessary regardless of what sort of role you find yourself in. Because there is old age saying, winners don't do different things, but they do things differently, made famous by Shiv Khera. Hence, when you present your document in an efficient manner, then you are in the you can success in your career. So here come our first speaker of the day, Llp Pathak, who is going to guide us on the topic, how to master drafting of any business document. Now I would like to introduce Llp Pathak, our first speaker of the day. He has rich qualification of BA LLB. He has been practicing as an advocate since 2010. His practice area is commercial law, corporate law, intellectual property law, IP sharing, opposition, objection, infringement, licensing, arbitration law, issue related to contractual labor. He has usual appearance in Bombay High Court, Nagpur Branch Commercial Court, Civil Court, Nagpur. He has also engaged in Supreme Court, NCLT matters, Delhi High Court, Bombay High Court. Thank you, sir. I welcome you for the deliberation now.
Thank you so much. Should I begin, madam?
Yes, sir, please.
Devul, I'll just address for a few minutes.
Sure, sir. Please go ahead.
And then you can address.
Sure.
Dear professional colleagues, welcome to this webinar. Every Friday and Saturday, we have a webinar 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. The whole objective of these webinars is that each one of us should fly in the sky, should master the subject. Like the first topic which Devul is taking, he's from Nagpur. There are more than 500 business documents. This one area we can mint crores and crores of rupees every year. And the skill is so simple, like what we are talking, the same thing in the simple language we have to put in the any business agreement or business document. Gone are the days when we were using the difficult terminology. So he will be dealing with this topic. And then we have Parveen Sharma from Delhi. He will be talking on GST, which is a law which we have seen from 1st July 2017. Now, this law, though shortly on 1st July 2022, we will have 5-year completion. But this 18%, I consider maybe 100 times then income tax impact, because 18% is on the sale value and income tax is charged on the income which we make. Our percentage of profit may differ, 1%, 5%, 2% of the sale value. And here it is 18% of the sale value. So both these topics are very interesting. The speakers have agreed to be mentor those who want to learn more at one-to-one level. I personally also would like to be mentor to all members, and we invite everyone to be speakers, to be moderators, to write background material where we give 500 rupees per page. And no prior skill is required. Only skill required is fire in the belly, the ambition, the determination to be number one in the world. And another thing to get the work, there is a book by Wallace Wattle, Science of Getting Rich. Like when we buy anything, what we do, if something is of 2 lakhs, like Pallavi, I know she use all I products. iPhone Max Pro is, about 1.75 lakhs. But people are using that because the use value is more than the price. Similarly, our clients, if they are giving 5 lakhs to us, and the use value to our clients, if we give 7 lakhs, 10 lakhs, more than the professional fees which they are paying us, they will come to us again and again, and they will refer us to their all business associates. Other major I want everyone to follow is the use of social media. I strongly use, now I have started posting on 4 subjects: NBFC, IBC, drafting, cyber, and I'll be adding, maybe every 1 week, 1 more area. So maybe every 1 hour, I'll be posting 1 information about a subject. So the Facebook, Insta, Twitter, LinkedIn, blog, website, everything possible, online platform, because knowledge sharing, जो दिखता है वो बिकता है. We need to be thought leader. We should be seen and we should be heard. I started posting NBFC a week back, or maybe less than that. Yesterday I got a prospective client, and the fees may be 5 lakhs to 7 lakhs for 1 NBFC work. And of course, the knowledge is required to impress the client that I can do this work. And both Devul and Parveen will be talking, how to impress the client, how to get the work, and before that, how to acquire the knowledge. So wish you best of luck, and we should see that we set anything happens by setting goals. So set up a SMART goals. S is for specific, M is for measurable, it should be measured, and A is achieve, R is realistic, and T is time bound. Unless the goal is time bound, things will not happen. Thank you. Over to you, Devul.
Thank you so much, sir. So, friends, we will be talking about what are business documents and what exactly do we need to do to ensure that those business documents work for us. So, before we begin, I would want to understand as to how many of us know what exactly are business documents. Is there any mechanism with which we can understand as to whether people are responding or something? I believe Akash from tech support is there. Akash, can you just help me understand if they can interact with us? How will be they interacting with us? Chat box? Okay. So I would request everyone who is logged in to, just reply in the chat box and keeping the chat box open so that I can interact with everyone here. Because this is going to be important for me to understand and to be able to cater to even better, requests coming in to, deal about a specific document, talk about a specific document. So as we are beginning, I would like to first, try and address as to what are the contents of what I'm covering today with everyone. I want this to be a discussion. I don't want this to be a monologue. So let's try and understand what are business documents, क्या type के होते हैं, what are the specifics of those business documents, कौन से standard clauses होते हैं, कौन से industry specific clauses है, कौन से कुछ law specific clauses है, and then कुछ tips and tricks जो शायद हम लोगों को काम करने में थोड़ा सा directly मदद करेंगे कि how to draft that document. So now business documents को हम essentially दो अलग-अलग parts में divide कर रहे हैं. On one hand, on the left hand side of the screen, we have got legal documents. Now these are जो कि कोई ना कोई कानून में बनते हैं, कोई ना कोई law structure में बन रहे हैं. So we are talking about documents like partnership deeds, LLPs, articles of association, memorandum of association, HUFT deeds, and everything. And then there are documents which are not being formulated in any law, there are contracts, there are partition documents, there are wills, there are other agreements. Now, other agreements में भी क्या क्या आएगा हम लोग वो भी देखने की कोशिश करेंगे. So now, before we begin, हम लोग हर एक portion के साथ we'll be dealing with partnerships, LLP, AOA, MOA, HUF one by one. So let's try and understand what exactly are we looking at. So we are looking at partnership, for example. So partnership में, which is governed by the Partnership Act. What does the document require? The most important facet that we'll have to study, we'll have to see is what does the document require? The document requires names of partners, registered address, nature of the business that the partnership is doing, duration of the business. I'm sure aap log, your CAs, how many of you have drafted partnerships? Can you just reply with a quick yes or have drafted ke liye yes, why, something in the chat box so that I understand how many of you have dealt with partnership agreements before, or how many of you have drafted them before, or how many of you have seen them before. और जिन्होंने नहीं किया है, they can reply with a no or a N for me. Anyone, just quickly if you can go through that. Tech support आकाश कोई भी reply नहीं कर रहा है. Is it कि replies मुझे दिख नहीं रहे हैं या कोई reply ही नहीं?
Sir, just sorry to intervene. Sir, the participants have joined through other link, and whatever query they'll be posting, we will be taking at end of the session, 10 minutes prior to the session. Okay, one by one, moderator she'll be reading each and every query where you may answer.
Okay. So what I'll do then is I'll try and finish a little bit early, 10 minutes early, 15 minutes early, so that we can take up the queries at a later point of time.
Yes, sure.
Perfect. Sounds good. Thank you so much for that update. So we are looking at contents of the partnership. Now, a small tip to everyone who is looking into going into drafting of documents, just take a screenshot. This is going to help you in a longer way. So a screenshot of this particular thing will, enable you to understand as to what are the contents of the document. Percentage sharing between the parties, roles and responsibilities of each partner, and some other standard terms. Now, what are these other standard terms? We will be dealing with each of these standard terms at a later point of time in our today's presentation, and whether registration of partnerships is compulsory. Now, point number 8 is a small but a practical tip that I'm giving. Registration of all partnerships is compulsory in certain states. For example, in Maharashtra, it is compulsory, but registration becomes compulsory after the lapsing of 12 months from the date of existence. So you get 11 months free without registration. So if a partnership comes into existence only for a period of 11 months, registration is not compulsory of that partnership. So this is a small tip that we need to understand. We need to know as to what exactly are we dealing with. Now coming to LLP, let's try and understand what an LLP is. More or less, an LLP and a partnership are very similar to each other, but here comes the catch. An LLP cannot start business without registration. And point number 7 is again very critical to understanding of an LLP. It is that in all LLP, arbitration clause is compulsory. And another thing is that partnerships are regularly governed by Partnership Act, which is an older act of 1932. So it's not that updated to try and, understand the nuances, the improvements in business or the use of technology. Whereas LLP is a continuously updated legislation. The act came in 2008, but there have been amendments as late as 2019. And those amendments have, stuck up at the heart of it, have upgraded the law in such a way कि आज हम जब LLP पढ़ते हैं तब हाँ ये आज के लिए बना हुआ कानून है या आज के लिए बनी हुई पार्टनरशिप है ऐसा हमें ध्यान में आता है. Now another small facet of LLP which is very important is that LLPs are LLP या LLC are more or less globally known formats of doing business. Internationally, when we deal about bigger companies, bigger corporations, they are always registered as LLCs to a very big extent. So LLPs are also very important. Now comes the next part is drafting of AOA or MOA. Now, for example, AOA or MOA in the standard formats are given in the Companies Act. Table A or Table 21 under the old Act. I believe every one of you is already aware of that. I will not go into those specifics. Lekin what we need to understand is, when do we have to go for an LLP or when do we have to go for a company act is what needs to be looked into by you guys. And then it comes up whether the registration has been done, what is the share of percentage holding, what is the nature of the business of the company, what is registered address of the company, subscribers to the company, and everything. Now, yahan pe a small tip which again I will give while we are discussing what will be the difference between LLP and a company, because it is very similar on certain aspects with registrations of MCA, ROC, and all those requirements. It would be whether we are looking at venture capitalists investing funds into the business. If you are looking at venture capitalists investing funds, then LLP does not work. We will have to always resort to a company when it comes to a venture capitalist trying to invest funds into the company. Now, HUF does not have a fixed document under the law. It is usually under tax regime. I believe all of you are CAs. You are better equipped at me than to handle tax regime. You understand it better. So how is a PAN card for an HUF generated? What is a GST compliance for the HUF? What are the discounts available to an HUF under the law? For all of this, you guys are better. But then an HUF deed is prepared. In certain parts of Gujarat, an HUF deed is mandatory. In certain parts of Rajasthan, an HUF deed is mandatory. In Maharashtra, where I am based out of, HUF deeds are not mandatory. So it differs from state to state. And these are through the local amendments. Now let's come to the next part of it. What are certain other parts of the contracts? Now there are certain industry related contracts, which are called some industry related contracts. For example, if we look at IT industry, then there is the master service agreement, which is one of the most popular forms of agreement right now in the IT industry. Then there is the NDA, which is obviously a standard form, non-disclosure agreement. Then there is another kind of business that happens, which is staff augmentation. Now, what essentially happens is staff augmentation में आपका employee जो आपके रोल पे है, जिसका PF, ESIC आप भर रहे हैं, वो employee को आप किसी और कंपनी में प्लेस करते हैं एंड वो कंपनी में वहां पे वो काम कर रहा है. He is reporting to someone there. His work is being checked by someone there, but his salary is being paid by you, and that company pays you money to pay his salary. So this is essentially what staff augmentation deals with. Now, why am I going into what is the nature of the agreement? ये हम बाद में समझने की कोशिश करेंगे when we deal with what are the contents of these agreements. Now, construction related industry में obviously there are sale deeds, there are gift deeds, deeds of transfer, deeds of development, deeds of declaration. So DOD is essentially for two types of agreements. One is 2C के लिए बात कर रहा हूं मैं. One is a deed of development, which happens between the developer and the landowner, and a deed of declaration, which happens under the Apartment Act, which is again a very state-specific regime, because Apartment Act comes into in Maharashtra, in Gujarat, in Rajasthan, but does not have any role to play in bigger metro cities like Bombay or Delhi. वहां पे Apartment Act existence में ही नहीं है. वहां पे सिर्फ Cooperative Societies Act के हिसाब से सारी चीजें चलती है. Then come specific industry related agreements. There are agreements of manufacturing where a certain part of manufacturing is outsourced to a second party who manufactures that part, sends it back to the first manufacturing industry who uses it. So I'll give you an example of this. The basic example of this is manufacturing industry mein. For example, Hero Motors. Hero Motors produces all those motorcycles. Tire Hero Motor नहीं बनाता है. Tire MRF या फिर CAT ही बनाता है. So Hero Motors outsources certain manufacturing part to CAT or to MRF, and वहां पे MRF या CAT will then supply everything back. So there are agreements to that effect. Then there are agreements in retail and wholesale. What is the percentage sharing? Retailer को कितना percentage मिलेगा? Wholesaler को कितना मिलेगा? Storage wholesaler कहाँ पे कौन से terms and conditions में करेगा? Will it be stored in a cold chain? Will it be stored away from sunlight? माल नहीं बिका तो माल किसके पास वापस जाएगा? माल की ओनरशिप किसके पास रहेगी? इंश्योरेंस लायबिलिटी किसके पास रहेगी? प्रोडक्ट लायबिलिटी किसके पास रहेगी? ये सारे टर्म्स वो रिटेल या होलसेल कॉन्ट्रैक्ट में आ रहे हैं. So these are some industry specific contracts with industry specific contents that we will be looking into at one point of time. So हम लोग जब डिटेल में क्लॉजेस पढ़ेंगे तब हम लोग ये वन बाय वन कवर करने वाले हैं. Now we are looking at partition documents. What are partition documents? Partition of property between brothers is what we are covering. Between siblings is what we are covering. What is the nature of the property? Whether registration of that is compulsory. Now again, registration becomes a very state specific law. But if you are not advising on that, we will be lacking somewhere. So we will need to understand registration. Now what is the registration fees? What is the stamp duty payable for that registration? So I'll give you into a basic insight, okay? Registration is payable on the smallest part of the property in Maharashtra. So if you give 1% of the property to one brother and you give 10% of the property to his wife, registration is payable only on that 1% of the property. So भले ही उसका share 11% हो, लेकिन registration fee आप 1% पे देके liability सबकी common account में कम कर रहे हो. So these are practical aspects that we will need to study about. What about the remaining property? So for example, हमने देखा किसी के पास 4 property थी, 4 भाई बहन थे, सबको हमने एक दे दी. Now कल चल के ध्यान में आता है, अरे पापा की गांव में 5वीं प्रॉपर्टी थी, उसको तो हमने पार्टीशन ही नहीं किया है, वो प्रॉपर्टी किसके पास जाएगी? What will be the liability on that property? This will have to be covered. या would it be possible कि 6 भाई बहन है, 5 भाई बहन है, 2 भाई बहन आपस में बोलते हैं हम हमारा पार्टीशन कर लेते हैं, बाकी लोग अपना देखते बैठे. Is it permissible? Is it possible? If yes, when is it permissible? If no, when is it not permissible? These are aspects that need to be looked into. Now there are multiple situations where the parents are alive and partitions are taking place. Those have to be considered, taken into account, and all of that will have to be done. So ये भी हमारे business documents का ही एक part है. Then comes wills, codicils, testaments and probate. Now what is a probate? जो procedure will होने के बाद, इंसान मर जाने के बाद कोर्ट में जाके शुरू होता है, उसे हम essentially probate कहते हैं. So will जब हम कोर्ट में लेके जाते हैं, उसको हम probate कह रहे हैं. बट उसके लिए will का होना जरूरी है. Will 99% of the cases, I'll tell you, I've been practicing for 12-13 years of now. I have seen more wills are drafted by a chartered accountant than wills are drafted by lawyers. That's my practical experience. So what is a will? How is it drafted? What are the standard contents of a will? Is it necessary to register a will? What will happen if a will is not registered? Whether a will can be challenged before a court of law. All these aspects are very important when we are looking at what is a will to be looked at as a business document. And then we come into the Pandora's box of other commercial business documents. Now आप इसमें देख रहे हैं मैंने सिर्फ 12 categories example के तौर पे cover किए. This is not an exhaustive list. So if we are looking at document relating to import export, now इसमें फिर there are industry specific agreements. There will be bills of lading, there will be exchange documents, there will be shipment documents, bills of transport which are created when it comes via a shipment, when it comes via cargo. But import of export of technology is entirely a different agreement. Point number 8 में अगर आप देखेंगे, it's technology development, technology import export agreements which are happening. Then comes carriage of goods via road within the territory. So carriage of goods within India, export and import is from outside into inside. Then comes Vaishnavi ma'am, I believe there's a lot of ego. Thank you. Yes. Then comes franchising of those agreements happening. So आप लोग देखते हैं, I'm sure all of you have taken your families out to eat in a McDonald's. Now McDonald's is one of the best examples of what franchising is. How is it franchising? उसमें क्या क्या आता है? अच्छा, I'll give you a small tip now. When we are talking about a franchising agreement, just a small insight before we deal with the contents of the document on its merits. A small tip. Do you know, अगर McDonald's आपको French fry बेचता है, French fry के लिए आलू, French fry उबालने के लिए तेल, और French fry जो फ्रीजर में फ्रीज होता है, वो फ्रीजर, तीनों चीजें वो फ्रेंचाइजी को मैकडोनल्ड्स से ही खरीदनी पड़ती है. So it is not only the right to use a name, it is not only the way the store is designed, It is not only the training of the staff, it is not only the clothes that the staff will wear so as to give uniformity to the store, but it is also, so for example, French fry के ऊपर आपके नमक जाता है, नमक भी मैकडोनल्ड्स ही फ्रेंचाइज को बेचता है. It comes from that. You are looking at the, see, now this is where the scope of a business document, a commercial document is coming in. Then come in intermediary documents. Who is an intermediary? Now, intermediary is a term that is introduced to India by the IT Act. आप अपने, so for example, you use a cell phone. आप जियो से इंटरनेट ले रहे हो, या फिर आप वोडाफोन से इंटरनेट ले रहे हो, या आप एयरटेल से इंटरनेट ले रहे हो, या बीएसएनएल से, एमटीएनएल से इंटरनेट ले रहे हो. So ये जो companies है, these are termed as intermediaries. Now, there are a lot of smaller players in the market. I don't know how many people of you are aware, but there is a company called as U Broadband. There is another company called as Orange Infocom. Orange purchases internet in bulk from Vodafone and gives it to you. All these companies fall within the definition of the term intermediary. अभी इनके ऊपर 1000 restrictions है, 1000 इनके ऊपर liabilities है. If a crime is committed, then that crime has to be reported by these intermediaries. If you are watching porn, it has to be reported by these intermediaries. Your IP addresses are to be recorded by these intermediaries. So all of this is within the domain of that intermediary. आप जब connection लेते हो, I agree करके ऊपर click कर देते हो, या वो एक document देते हैं, उसके ऊपर आप दस्तखत कर देते हो. It binds you to that. It's a contract that you are signing. Then comes a joint venture. Joint venture is typically an agreement which is entered into as a partnership agreement between two companies at their level. So, अगर आप देखेंगे, most of the bigger tenders are on a JV basis. Most of the bigger agreements जिसमें shipping related agreements है, road construction related agreements है, these are all joint venture agreements between two or more players who come together, wherein one partner invests either a technology and the other partner brings in sweat, actual work doing capacity, contractual ground running legs जिसको हम लोग बोलेंगे, and those are fused together to form a joint venture agreement. And then comes subscription and investment agreements. आप लोग सारे CA है, I think subscription and investment agreements आप लोग मेरे से better day-to-day basis पे handle कर रहे हैं. So subscription to various companies, IPOs, investment into various mutual funds, all of that I believe is your domain better than my domain. Then comes mergers and acquisitions. So I'll buy shares of certain companies and then I'll merge two companies together. If two companies are merging together, then what is the name that will prevail? Whether a new brand identity will be created, assets कौन से company में कौन से company के पास जाएंगे, what will be the asset ownership ratio, sharing ratio, how will be the disputes handled, who will have ownership and control over the newer entity, what is the nature of it. So merger and acquisitions uske saath hai. Then come technology development agreement. So there is something called as moral rights of an author. Now moral rights of an author, which is defined essentially under the copyright law, is that when your rights, अगर आपने कोई टेक्नोलॉजी डेवलप की है, अगर आपने कोई डॉक्यूमेंट क्रिएट किया है, the rights to that document continue to be with you. You will be recognized as the creator even if you have been paid for creating that document. So if you look at it, a lot of time patent is owned by the company, but the creator of that patent is an individual. That is the moral right of that individual to be recognized as the creator of that patent. That is where the technology development agreement, IP agreement come in. Now, these are typically signed either between a hiring company and an outsourced company, or between a company and its employees. There are levels to it. And then come IP sharing agreements. I'm sure आप लोगों ने सुना होगा. अच्छा, आप लोग फिलहाल मार्केट में एक बहुत क्लासिक एग्जांपल देख रहे हैं. जो कार अब तक मारुति बेचती थी, फॉर एग्जांपल बलेनो या फिर ब्रेजा, जो इतने सालों से मारुति मार्केट में बेच रही थी, suddenly Toyota has come up with a similar looking car with the same engine, almost 90% the same design, minor cosmetic changes है design में. This is what IP sharing is. Design share हुआ, copyright share हुए, उसके ऊपर के trademark share हुए, उसके design languages share हुए, उसके पेटेंट्स शेयर हुए, ये सारी चीजें जब शेयर होती है, दिस इज एन IP शेयरिंग अग्रीमेंट का बेस्ट पॉसिबल एग्जांपल. देन कम एक्सप्लोरेशन ऑफ ऑयल्स, माइनिंग, मिनरल्स एक्सेट्रा. माइनिंग या एक्सप्लोरेशन ऑफ ऑयल इज अ स्टेट कंट्रोल्ड मोनोपोली इन इंडिया. आप कहीं पे भी जाके खुदाई नहीं कर सकते हो यहाँ तेल है कि नहीं पता करने के लिए, आपको स्टेट से परमिशन लेनी पड़ती है. स्टेट आपको परमिशन देगी, उसके बाद आप जाएंगे, स्टेट के साथ आपका डिटेल्ड अग्रीमेंट साइन होता है. नाउ दीज आर अग्रीमेंट्स व्हिच आर डिजाइन्ड एंड मैनिपुलेटेड एंड bargained between the state as an entity and the company who has won the tender to have that exploration right. Most classic example will be coal के exploration rights आपको usually WCL, SECL या ECL देता है, whereas आपके oil के exploration rights 99.9% of the cases में ONGC आपको देता है. So this is how where it comes to insurance. Now life insurance छोड़ के आप लोगों ने फायर इंश्योरेंस, ओमिशंस एंड लाइबिलिटीज इंश्योरेंस, एरर इंश्योरेंस, एम्प्लॉइज प्रोटेक्शन इंश्योरेंस, ये सारे इंश्योरेंस भी होते हैं. दीज इंश्योरेंसेस आर बार्गेन्ड बिटवीन द इंश्योरेंस कंपनी एंड बिटवीन द इंश्योर्ड कंपनी, एंड ये सारे जो इंश्योरेंस के कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स होते हैं ये भी साइन होते हैं. एंड देन कम आउटसोर्सिंग, सो एजेंसी रिलेटेड डॉक्यूमेंट्स. ये मेरे को काम नहीं करना है, मेरे काम का ये 10% चंक है, मैं किसी को एजेंसी दे देता हूँ इसकी, आप एजेंसी ले लो, आप ये काम करो, मेरे को काम करके दे दो. एंड फिर कम, अच्छा 2G स्कैम, फिर 3G आया, फिर 4G आया, नाउ वी आर लुकिंग एट 5G बीइंग रोलिंग आउट इनटू द कंट्री. क्या है एसेंशियली, दिस इज अ स्पेक्ट्रम ऑफ एरिया ऑफ इलेक्ट्रोमैग्नेटिक वेव्स, इसके भी अग्रीमेंट्स बनते हैं. So this is just a broad example कि किस किस तरीके के किस किस चीज के अग्रीमेंट्स बनते हैं. I am not going into the specifics because हम लोगों के पास, पहले मैं सोच रहा था 1 घंटा है, now with understanding कि आप लोगों की क्वेरीज बाद में आने वाली है, 45 मिनट्स है, बिकॉज 15 मिनट में आपकी क्वेरीज के लिए ओपन रख रहा हूँ. सो हम लोगों के पास ये सारे कंटेंट्स है, हमको ये सारे अलग अलग टाइप के अग्रीमेंट्स है और इनके अलग अलग टाइप के क्लॉजेस होते हैं. लेकिन कुछ clauses are always standard clauses. Now these are the standard clauses that we will be looking into. What are our standard clauses? Now मैंने हमारे standard clauses को 3 अलग अलग parts में divide कर लिया. I'll be going into each one very briefly. Is anyone interrupting me? Any address for me? No, some echo or feedback. Okay. Okay, now मैंने ये clauses को आपके लिए 3 अलग अलग पार्ट्स में डिवाइड कर लिया है. I'll request most of the people who want to go into drafting of contracts, आप इसका एक स्क्रीनशॉट ले लो, ये तीनों स्लाइड्स का 1, 2 and 3 दिया हुआ है मैंने. 1 इज आपके सामने ऑलरेडी, आप इसका एक स्क्रीनशॉट ले लीजिए. नाउ रिलेशनशिप, जब कोई कॉन्ट्रैक्ट साइन होता है तब 2 पार्टीज में हमेशा एक रिलेशनशिप क्रिएट होता है. व्हाट इज द रिलेशनशिप? ये हमेशा कॉन्ट्रैक्ट में आना जरूरी है. आप एजेंसी बना रहे हैं सामने वाले के साथ, आप एम्प्लॉयर एम्प्लॉय रिलेशनशिप बना रहे हैं, आप कॉन्ट्रैक्चुअल पार्टनरशिप रिलेशनशिप दे रहे हैं, आप सब्सिडियरी रिलेशनशिप दे रहे हैं. व्हाट इज द नेचर ऑफ दैट रिलेशनशिप? इट ऑलवेज नीड्स टू बी मेंशन्ड इन अ कमर्शियल बिजनेस कॉन्ट्रैक्ट. देन कम्स द कॉम्पिटेंसी क्लॉज. कॉम्पिटेंसीज आप लिख के देते हैं कि हाँ, आई एम कॉम्पिटेंट टू एंटर इनटू दिस अग्रीमेंट. अगर मेरे पास कॉम्पिटेंसी नहीं होगी तो अग्रीमेंट नहीं हो पाएगा. So we are looking at the competency of the parties to enter into that agreement. Then comes anti-corruption clause. Anti-corruption या garnishment जो होती है वो essentially ये होता है कि हम ये देखने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं whether आप किसी से कुछ ले सकते हैं. So for example, you are entering into a relationship with an insurance company. Insurance company हमेशा एक clause डालती है, आप हमारे ऑफिसर्स को ब्राइब करने की कोशिश नहीं करेंगे so that आपके फेवर में कोई एक फेवरेबल क्लेम सेटलमेंट हो पाए. Then come garnishments, which is a very closely related term to anti corruption. अगर आपके तरफ से कोई ऐसा ऑर्डर आता है कि यहाँ डिडक्शन करना है, whether that order will be honored or not honored, it is garnishments. Then comes confidentiality, whether the agreement is confidential, whether terms of the agreement are confidential, whether existence of the agreement is confidential, whether data which is shared between the parties by virtue of existence of the agreement that is confidential, ये सब कुछ जाएगा कॉन्फिडेंशियलिटी में। देन कम परमिटेड डिस्क्लोजर, कि हम क्या क्या परमिट करेंगे थर्ड पार्टीज को डिस्क्लोज होना। फॉर एग्जाम्पल, अगर मैंने कोई एक इंश्योरेंस अग्रीमेंट लिया, इंश्योरेंस कॉन्ट्रैक्ट लिया, तो मैं अगर थर्ड पार्टी को बताता हूं मैंने इंश्योरेंस कॉन्ट्रैक्ट लिया हुआ है, इज दैट परमिटेड? हाँ, स्पेशली अगर आपने मोटर व्हीकल एक्सीडेंट इंश्योरेंस लिया है फॉर एग्जाम्पल, आपको आरटीओ को नेसेसरीली डिस्क्लोज करना ही पड़ेगा, मैंने लिया है। आप आरटीओ को डिस्क्लोज नहीं करोगे तो आपको आरटीओ वैसे भी जेल में भेज देगा। सो दैट इज वेयर क्या क्या कॉन्फिडेंशियल है और क्या क्या परमिटेड है, दिस इज द बाउंड्री बिटवीन दैट। एंड देन कम्स इंटेलेक्चुअल प्रॉपर्टी, असाइनमेंट ऑफ आईपी, लाइसेंसिंग ऑफ आईपी एंड राइट्स मॉरल वेवर का, राइट्स का वेवर, ये सारी चीजें आ रही है। नाउ असाइनमेंट एंड लाइसेंसिंग में क्या फर्क है? असाइनमेंट में मैं मेरे सारे राइट्स आपको दे दे रहा हूँ, वेयर एज लाइसेंसिंग में मैं आपको बोल रहा हूँ ये राइट्स तो मैं आपको दे रहा हूँ, लेकिन मुझे इसके लिए मैं किराए पे दे रहा हूँ, मुझे इसके लिए इतना पैसा चाहिए आपसे हर महीने, हर साल या हर प्रोडक्ट बेसिस पे। सो आपने 10 कार बनाई तो मुझे 1 लाख रुपया लगेगा, आपने 100 कार बनाई तो मैं 10 लाख रुपया लूंगा। सो दैट इज लाइसेंसिंग, वेयर एज असाइनमेंट इज वन टाइम डील। देन कम्स वेवर ऑफ मॉरल राइट्स, जो यूजुअली सारे एम्प्लॉयर्स अपने एम्प्लॉइज से करवा लेते हैं। दिस इज व्हाट clause part 1 of standard clauses of a business contract would be. Then comes part 2, this is the next slide. And this, if you have to screenshot it, this is the right time, go ahead and screenshot it. Now these are indemnity, कि अगर मैंने कॉन्ट्रैक्ट में गलती की तो मैं आपको ये पैसे भर के दूंगा, इज इंडेमनिटी। देन कम सेवरेबिलिटी, अगर हमारे 100 पन्ने के कॉन्ट्रैक्ट में से 2 पन्ने कोड बोलता है गैर कानूनी है, बाकी 98 पन्ने टिकेंगे या बाकी 98 पन्ने भी गैर कानूनी हो जाएंगे, दैट इज डिसाइडेड बाय योर सेवरेबिलिटी। देन कम्स वेवर, मुझे अगर कानून में कोई हक है मैं तब वो हक एक्सरसाइज नहीं करता हूं, तो वो हक मुझे कब तक एक्सरसाइज करने का हक होगा, whether I waived that right, whether I reserve that right, up to when can I reserve that right, when will it be deemed to be waived, ये सारी टर्म्स आती है वेवर में। देन कम्स असाइनमेंट ऑफ राइट्स, सपोज मैंने आपके साथ एक अग्रीमेंट किया, आई विल गिव यू एन एग्जांपल, मैंने पार्ले के साथ एक अग्रीमेंट किया था वेयर पार्ले वाज सपोज टू सप्लाई बिस्लरी टू मी। कल चल के पार्ले एग्रोवेट ने पूरा बिजनेस पार्ले फूड को बेच दिया, टेक्निकली ऑन पेपर 2 अलग अलग कंपनीज है, वेदर द राइट टू सप्लाई मी would have been assigned by the company to another company is what we are looking at in assignment. Then come interpretation, के लिए हमेशा entire agreement को देखा जाएगा, हम उसको piecemeal break नहीं करेंगे, that is the part of what an entire agreement is going to be looking at. उसके बाद हम देख रहे हैं what are the headings of the agreement. Heading is the title जो ऊपर दिया जाता है। I am sure आप लोगों ने सबने agreements कॉन्ट्रैक्ट एट सम पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम और द अदर देखे हैं। ये सारे जो आप अभी हम डिस्कस कर रहे हैं ये सारे वही हेडिंग्स है, वेदर हम हेडिंग को इंपॉर्टेंस देंगे या हम उसके अंडर के कंटेंट्स को इंपॉर्टेंस देंगे, दिस इज व्हाट द हेडिंग्स क्लॉज डिसाइडेड। एंड हेडिंग क्लॉज ये भी डिसाइड करता है साथ में कि वेदर हेडिंग्स को इंपॉर्टेंस दिया जाएगा तो कितना परसेंटेज में दिया जाएगा, to what extent will the heading prevail and to what extent will the content of the agreement prevail. जो अगला क्लॉज है हम डिस्कस करने वाले हैं वो ऑब्वियसली है फोर्स मेजर। अभी दिस इज प्रोबेबली द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट क्लॉज इन द रिसेंट टाइम्स। पैंडेमिक में अगर कोई क्लॉज सबसे ज्यादा कोई कमर्शियल कॉन्ट्रैक्ट में, हर कमर्शियल कॉन्ट्रैक्ट में मैटर किया है तो वो था फोर्स मेजर। फोर्स मेजर इसेंशियली इज एन एक्ट ऑफ गॉड, अ पैंडेमिक, a riot, a flood, an earthquake, ऐसी कोई भी घटना जो ह्यूमन बीइंग के कंट्रोल के बाहर थी, अगर वो होती है तो whether the contract gets cancelled, whether the contract gets suspended, कब तक सस्पेंडेड रहेगा, अगर सस्पेंडेड रहेगा तो सस्पेंशन बताना पड़ेगा या ऑटोमेटिकली सस्पेंडेड है करके समझ जाएगा, ये सारी चीजें फोर्स मेजर में लिखी हुई होती है। एंड these have an impact on your financial implications, exchanges between the parties. इसलिए force measure is probably one of the most important parts of the contract. In fact, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, इन तीनों चारों ministries ने हमें force measure पैंडेमिक या कोविड-19 या कोरोना वायरस इज अ फोर्स मेजर क्लॉज, इस तरीके के नोटिफिकेशंस निकाले थे जिसके तहत कई कंपनियां बैंकरप्ट होने से बच गई थी बिकॉज उनके कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स में फोर्स मेजर ये क्लॉज था. सो दैट इज द एंटायर एस्पेक्ट ऑफ फोर्स मेजर फॉर यू. देन कम्स टर्म ऑफ द कॉन्ट्रैक्ट. हम कॉन्ट्रैक्ट कितने दिनों के लिए कर रहे हैं? हम कॉन्ट्रैक्ट 100 पीसेस आने तक कर रहे हैं. वो 100 पीसेस चाहिए तो 1 महीने में आए, 2 महीने में आए, 6 महीने में आए, साल भर में आए. हम कॉन्ट्रैक्ट 6 महीने के लिए कर रहे हैं. 6 महीने के बाद कॉन्ट्रैक्ट अपने आप खत्म हो जाएगा. या हम कॉन्ट्रैक्ट अनलिमिटेड ड्यूरेशन के लिए कर रहे हैं जब तक कोई पार्टी उसको कैंसिल नहीं कर देती है. नाउ इसका बेस्ट एग्जांपल इज अगेन आई विल गो बैक टू इंश्योरेंस, बिकॉज इंश्योरेंस आप लोगों को सबको पता है. मोस्ट ऑफ यू हैव टेकन अ लाइफ इंश्योरेंस पॉलिसी. देयर आर सर्टेन लाइफ इंश्योरेंस पॉलिसीज जो आपके मरने तक चलने वाली है. देयर आर सर्टेन लाइफ इंश्योरेंस पॉलिसीज व्हिच आर टर्म लाइफ इंश्योरेंस पॉलिसीज. दोज आर योर टर्म ऑफ द कॉन्ट्रैक्ट. उसको टर्म इंश्योरेंस पॉलिसी इस टर्म के वजह से कहते हैं. So this is the duration of the contract. Duration can be unlimited, can be good specific, or it even can be, for example, contract specific. So ये सारी आपकी terms of the contract है. Then comes termination of the contract. ये आप contract कब terminate कर पाएंगे. In certain contracts आपको terminate करने का हक नहीं होता है. In certain contracts, certain parties को certain notices के बाद terminate करने का हक होता है. आप कुछ कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स इमीडिएटली टर्मिनेट कर सकते हो. कुछ कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स आपको मिनिमम 30 डे नोटिस है, 90 डे नोटिस है. सो एम्प्लॉयमेंट रिलेटेड कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स आपने सुना होगा रेजिग्नेशन पीरियड कितना है, नोटिस पीरियड कितना है, कॉमन पार्लांस में हमारे डिस्कशन में आता है. दिस इज ये जो टर्मिनेशन क्लॉज है उसमें से आने वाले टर्म्स. कहीं कहीं इट इज 60 डेज, कहीं कहीं इट इज 90 डेज, कहीं कहीं इट इज 120 डेज. हर कॉन्ट्रैक्ट में अपनी अपनी कॉन्ट्रैक्ट की ये चीजें होती है. एंड कुछ क्लॉजेस जो होते हैं ये सरवाइव कर जाते हैं इस टर्मिनेशन को. जैसे कि हमने जो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट देखा है उसमें अगर हम लीगल क्लॉजेस देखते हैं तो वो यूजुअली टर्मिनेशन के बाद भी जिंदा रहेंगे, ऐसा भी रहता है. उसको हम लोग सर्टेन क्लॉजेस सरवाइव टर्मिनेशन ऐसा भी कहते हैं. हम हमारे थर्ड स्लाइड ऑफ द सर्टेन बिजनेस कॉन्ट्रैक्ट एसेंशियल्स पे आ चुके हैं. नाउ दिस इज डिस्प्यूट. अगर आपको स्क्रीनशॉट लेना है थर्ड स्लाइड का, दिस इज योर बेस्ट टाइम टू डू इट. प्लीज डू इट राइट नाउ. नाउ इफ यू आर लुकिंग एट डिस्प्यूट रेजोल्यूशन स्लैश आर्बिट्रेशन. डिस्प्यूट होता है तो कोर्ट में जाएंगे या प्राइवेटली रिजॉल्व करेंगे निगोशिएशंस एंड आर्बिट्रेशंस के तहत. ये होता है तय आपके डिस्प्यूट रेजोल्यूशन क्लॉज में. देन आपका ऑब्वियसली नेक्स्ट है यार झगड़ा तो हो गया, ये भी तय हो गया कि हम कोर्ट में जाएंगे एक में के खिलाफ. कौन से कोर्ट में जाएंगे वो डिसाइड करता है आपका जुरिस्डिक्शन क्लॉज. देन आता है वेवर ऑफ पैरेलल जुरिस्डिक्शंस. एक पार्टी लोकेटेड है मुंबई में, द अदर पार्टी इज लोकेटेड एट कैलकाटा. कौन सी पार्टी के पास कहां पे जुरिस्डिक्शन, कौन से कोर्ट में जाने का हक होगा? मुंबई वाली पार्टी को कैलकाटा जाना पड़ेगा या कैलकाटा वाले पार्टी को मुंबई आना पड़ेगा? ये डिसाइड होगा वेवर ऑफ पैरेलल जुरिस्डिक्शन एंड जुरिस्डिक्शन क्लॉज में. देन आता है लिमिटेशंस ऑन लायबिलिटी. किसकी कितनी लायबिलिटी रहेगी? मेरी लायबिलिटी अंडर द कॉन्ट्रैक्ट इज लिमिटेड टू 1 लाख रुपीज. अगर मेरे से कोई गलती भी हो जाती है मैं 1 लाख रुपए से ज्यादा आपको नहीं दूंगा. ये हो गया आपका लिमिटेशन ऑन लायबिलिटी. देन कम्स डैमेजेस का क्लॉज कि अगर मेरे से गलती होती है तो मैं आपको कितने डैमेजेस लिक्विडेट करके दूंगा. सपोज आपका नुकसान 100 करोड़ का होगा लेकिन मैं आपको डैमेजेस लिक्विडेट करके सिर्फ 1 करोड़ रुपए के दूंगा. ये हो गया लिक्विडेटेड डैमेजेस. सो अभी अगर आप देखेंगे ये सारे आर इंटर रिलेटेड क्लॉजेस. डिस्प्यूट रेजोल्यूशन, जुरिस्डिक्शन, वेवर ऑफ जुरिस्डिक्शन, these are interrelated. And then comes limitation of liability and liquidated damages. These are interrelated. इसलिए हमने इसको सेम स्लाइड पे कवर किया है ताकि आपका कंफ्यूजन उसमें टू एन एक्सटेंट कम हो. And then come the right to take an injunction. The right to take an injunction may supersede over all of this क्योंकि हम उससे डैमेजेस या जो नुकसान होने वाला है, जो कंपेंसेशन पेएबल होगा उसको कम कर रहे हैं या प्रॉपर्टी एलियनेट होने से रोक रहे हैं. सो वेदर दैट राइट विल प्रिवेल ओवर ऑल अदर राइट्स, वेदर दैट राइट विल सबसिस्ट, वेदर अ पार्टी कैन गो टू द कोर्ट क्लेमिंग दैट राइट, ये सारा आपका इंजंक्शन क्लॉज में कवर होता है यूजुअली. सो दीज सो नाउ गोइंग बैक, हमने फर्स्ट इसमें 6 क्लॉजेस देखे थे, नेक्स्ट इसमें हमने 9 क्लॉजेस देखे हैं, और उसके बाद हमने अगेन 6 क्लॉजेस देखे हैं. दीज आर योर इसेंशियल्स ऑफ अ कॉन्ट्रैक्ट. 21 क्लॉजेस आर योर एब्सोल्यूट इसेंशियल्स ऑफ अ कॉन्ट्रैक्ट. इसके बिना कोई कमर्शियल कॉन्ट्रैक्ट कभी नहीं बन सकता है. एंड देन वी कम टू सर्टेन टिक्स एंड ट्रिप्स. नाउ वी आर लुकिंग एट, see, before we started, Dr. Rajkumar addressed us. Sir told us common sense prevails. Yes, common sense has to prevail. Common sense क्यों prevail करता है? आप जो चीज रोज बना रहे हो, जो चीज रोज बिजनेस में हो रही है, उसी को आपको वर्डिंग में रिकॉर्ड करना है. सो आपको कॉमन सेंस आपका प्रिवेल करना चाहिए. कुछ चीज अगर इस तरीके से है, उसको उसी तरीके से हमें अग्रीमेंट में लिखना है. स्टैंडर्ड 21 क्लॉजेस हम ऑलरेडी रिकॉर्ड करके रख सकते हैं. Normally market contracts are usually very similar to each other. पार्टीज के सारे डिटेल्स आपको उसमें हमेशा रिकॉर्ड करने हैं. सो अगर पार्टी का जीएसटी नंबर है, रिकॉर्ड कर लो. पैन नंबर है, रिकॉर्ड कर लो. इट्स अ कमर्शियल कंपनी, प्राइवेट लिमिटेड है, पार्टी का सिन नंबर रिकॉर्ड कर लो. डायरेक्टर सिग्नेटरी है, डिन नंबर रिकॉर्ड कर लो. डायरेक्टर का आधार कार्ड रिकॉर्ड कर लो. डायरेक्टर का पैन कार्ड रिकॉर्ड कर लो. अगर कोई एलएलपी है, एलएलपी रजिस्ट्रेशन नंबर रिकॉर्ड कर लो. अगर इंडिविजुअल है तो फिर भी आधार कार्ड रिकॉर्ड कर लो. ये सारा हमेशा रिकॉर्ड करना ही है अग्रीमेंट में. हम जितना स्पेसिफिक अग्रीमेंट बनाएंगे उतना हमारे क्लाइंट्स के लिए हमेशा बेटर रहेगा. एंड देन ऑब्वियसली वी हैव द बेस्ट पार्ट ऑफ इट. अगर कोई कंफ्यूजन होता है, सेंड इट टू मी. नॉट जस्ट मी, सेंड इट टू एनी लॉयर आउट देयर, बिकॉज लॉयर्स आर ट्रेन्ड टू डू इट. स्पेशली कॉर्पोरेट एंड कमर्शियल लॉयर्स आर बेटर ट्रेन्ड to handle these contracts with each other on a day-to-day basis. Now, I am sure आप लोगों में से काफी लोग जो इसको सुन रहे हैं, you are viewing this on a computer screen. If you are viewing this on a computer screen, I am going to request you कि आप 2 सेकंड दीजिए. I'm going to wait here for 2 minutes for you. आप link 1 अपने ब्राउजर में जाइए, क्रोम, सफारी, whatever, गूगल लेंस खोलिए, कोई भी QR कोड रीडर खोलिए, या इसको स्क्रीनशॉट करके रख लीजिए. एंड आप ये लिंक्स खोल लीजिए. जो स्टैंडर्ड क्लॉजेस हमने पहले डिस्कस किए, द 21 स्टैंडर्ड क्लॉजेस दैट वी डिस्कस्ड, दे आर ऑल कवर्ड इन दीज लिंक्स फॉर यू. आई एम मेकिंग योर जॉब इजियर. मैं बोल तो बहुत आसानी से रहा हूं, कम बैक टू मी, लेकिन जब क्लाइंट सर पे बैठा होता है, तब हमारा क्लाइंट हमारी बात सुनने नहीं वाला होता है. तब उसको हमें टाइम बाउंड रेजोल्यूशन देना है, टाइम बाउंड सॉल्यूशन देना है. वो टाइम बाउंड सॉल्यूशन इज ऑलवेज गोइंग टू बी हेल्पिंग यू इन दीज लिंक्स. अगर ये लिंक्स आपका कंफ्यूजन सॉल्व नहीं कर पाती है, देन यू विल हैव टू सेंड इट टू अ लॉयर. सो ये लिंक्स आप प्लीज इसको स्क्रीनशॉट कीजिए, खोल लीजिए, बुकमार्क कर लीजिए, व्हाटएवर मैकेनिज्म यू प्रेफर. दीज आर योर QR codes for that. And then obviously we are coming down to my last slide. These are my contact details for you. Screenshot them. The QR code can be scanned, and then we can come down to what are the nuances of your queries now. Your QR queries are obviously there with me. Some have been raised by Pallavi madam to me already. We'll be covering this. So now is the time for you guys to raise all those questions. I have approximately 10 minutes left here to finish it before 5, and I am open to taking up all those queries. So now is the time. Start shooting those queries. Pallavi ma'am, I request you to take them one by one so that we can discuss them, please. Pallavi ma'am, are you there?
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the wonderful deliberation. Now, I would like the first query raised by the participants is request if the nuances of royalty agreement can be described for IP rights.
IP rights is a very broad term, sir. IP में trademark, copyright, patent, GI, design, semiconductor, ऐसी 1000 चीजें आ रही है. हर चीज के रॉयल्टी अलग अलग होगी. 99% of the time when we use the term royalty, we are using it with relation to a copyright. ये बुक इंडस्ट्री में बहुत कॉमन फंडा होता है. हम रॉयल्टी देते हैं फॉर एवरी बुक दैट इज पब्लिश्ड. सो पब्लिशर के ऊपर रिस्ट्रिक्शंस होते हैं टू डिस्क्लोज कि आपने कितनी किताबें छापी है. आप पर बुक रॉयल्टी देने वाले हो या आप पर एडिशन रॉयल्टी देने वाले हो. एट टाइम्स फर्स्ट एडिशन 1000 बुक्स का होता है, रिस्पॉन्स अच्छा मिल जाए तो सेकंड एडिशन 2000 बुक्स का हो जाता है. उस केसेस में ऑथर का नुकसान हो रहा है. सेकेंड एडिशन 500 का होगा तो पब्लिशर का नुकसान हो रहा है. सो ये जो नुआंसेस जाते हैं ये सारे जाते हैं आपके रॉयल्टी अग्रीमेंट में. एट टाइम्स रॉयल्टी अग्रीमेंट्स विल आल्सो रिलेट टू शेयरिंग ऑफ अ ट्रेडमार्क, कि हम अपना ट्रेडमार्क आपको यूज करने देंगे, आप ट्रेडमार्क यूज साल भर कर सकते हैं, उसके लिए आप हमें इतनी रॉयल्टी देंगे. आप हमारे 6 बोर्ड लगा पाएंगे, 6 बोर्ड का ये बाय ये का साइज होगा. इस तरीके के रॉयल्टी अग्रीमेंट्स भी होते हैं. सो दीज आर दी रॉयल्टी अग्रीमेंट्स विच आर देयर फॉर एवरी IP agreement which is there. Licensing हो, royalty हो, assignment हो, they are necessarily to be registered with that IP authority. Otherwise वो गैर कानूनी होता है. So this is all about royalty and IP. Ma'am, the next query.
Thank you, sir. Things to be kept in mind while drafting commission agreement.
Commission कब payable होगा, कब payable नहीं होगा, एंड अगर लिखा हुआ है कि कमीशन पेएबल है या नहीं है, वो कंटिजेंसी कवर्ड ही नहीं है. फॉर एग्जांपल 1, 2 या 3 चीजें हुई तो मैं आपको 6% कमीशन दूंगा. 4, 5 या 6 नहीं हुई तो मैं आपको कमीशन नहीं दूंगा. सपोज इन 6 में से कुछ नहीं हुआ, 7वीं चीज हो गई, तो कमीशन पेएबल होगा या नहीं होगा, वहां से झगड़ा शुरू होता है. सो एक उसको रेसिड्यूअरी क्लॉज कहा जाता है लीगल लैंग्वेज में. वो रेसिड्यूअरी क्लॉज का हर कमीशन अग्रीमेंट में होना बहुत जरूरी है. दिस इज द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट एस्पेक्ट ऑफ एनी कमीशन अग्रीमेंट ड्राफ्टिंग. यस मैम, व्हाट इज आवर नेक्स्ट क्वेरी?
Thank you, sir. Is only mentioning term force majeure enough to consider all uncontrolled event?
No, force majeure does not include all uncontrolled event. Force majeure में किस किस टाइप के इवेंट्स आएंगे ये इंक्लूड करना जरूरी है. सो फॉर एग्जाम्पल पैंडेमिक इज वन इवेंट इन फोर्स मेजर एंड लॉकडाउन इज अनदर इवेंट इन फोर्स मेजर. ये 2 अलग अलग इवेंट्स हैं, आपको मेंशन करना पड़ेगा उसको उस तरीके से. आजकल सिंस रशिया का वॉर चालू हो गया है, वॉर को भी इंक्लूड किया जा रहा है फोर्स मेजर क्लॉजेस में. सो ये सारे फोर्स मेजर कंटिजेंसीज है. सो ओनली मेंशनिंग फोर्स मेजर इज नॉट इवेंट. आपको एग्जाम्पल्स ऑफ दोज इंडिकेसीज भी लेने पड़ते हैं, आपको वो लेना जरूरी है. यस मैम, व्हाट इज आवर नेक्स्ट क्वेरी?
Can you explain assignment clause once again?
Assignment clause of IP? What assignment clause? We covered 2 different types of assignment clauses. I am shifting from my last slide. I am going back to the relevant slides so that we can cover them again. So we covered 2 different types of assignment clauses. First assignment clause was on first screen of our contract where we are dealing with assignment of IP, and the second assignment clause that we dealt with was in the left hand side column. Second entry आपकी है assignment in general. Assignment of IP was हम intellectual property rights हमारे किसी को assign कर रहे हैं, and second assignment clause was हमारे contractual rights है. So I may have a contractual right to receive certain money from you. मैं वो मेरी sister concern को दे रहा हूँ for taxation purposes. या I may have a right to supply certain things to you for next 10 years. मैं वो किसी को सब कॉन्ट्रैक्ट कर रहा हूँ, वो भी असाइनमेंट क्लॉज में आता है. सो असाइनमेंट क्लॉजेस आर ऑफ 2 types. Assignment of IP, which we covered on our slide 1 of essentials, and assignment in general, which we covered on clause 2 of our essentials. So that is all about assignment.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for drafting for wills. Do you suggest some standard clause to be there or layout?
Will is something that's always very subjective. There are people like Mr. Ambani out there who are richest people on the planet, and there are people like me who don't own any property. So will is very subjective. मेरे पास शायद फोन और घड़ी छोड़ के कुछ नहीं है. So every person's property has to come in. कितने बच्चे हैं वो देखना पड़ता है, किसको क्या देना है वो देखना पड़ता है. There are no standard formats to a will. Clauses, हाँ, I would suggest you include all the heirs जो होंगे आपके, उसकी एक लिस्ट इंक्लूड कर लीजिए ताकि डिस्प्यूट ना हो. I would suggest आप एक रेसिड्यूअरी क्लॉज रखिए कि मरने के बाद 20 साल बाद ध्यान में आता है गांव में कोई प्रॉपर्टी थी तो वो भी शायद विल में इंक्लूड हो सके. ये सारे क्लॉजेस आप डालिए is what I will recommend. but there are no standard layouts to avail ever. Yes, anything else, ma'am?
So it can be simple verbose.
Yes, it can be simple verbose. There is no difficulty. Small suggestion, will बनाते वक्त एक मेडिकल सर्टिफिकेट साथ में जोड़ दीजिएगा. डॉक्टर ने आपको एग्जामिन किया है, आप फिट हो, यू आर नॉट अंडर एनी मेडिकेशन विच कैन अफेक्ट योर फ्री विल, आप कोई एनेस्थीसिया के अंडर नहीं हो, आप किसी ऐसे मेडिकेशन के अंडर नहीं हो जहां आपको कोई इन्फ्लुएंस कर सकता है, आपका बीपी नॉर्मल था, आपकी पल्स नॉर्मल थी, आपका दिमाग जगह पे था, ये सब आप एक बार डॉक्टर से चेक करके लिखवा लीजिए. Is a small suggestion. It can be verbatim. Will registration is not even compulsory, but advised, recommended, yes, hai.
So in case of employee resignation, what are the steps we can take on employee? What are the things to safeguard as employee from point of view of employee or employer?
Usually when an employee resigns, it is always advised, आपकी सारी प्रॉपर्टी, अगर आपने लैपटॉप दिया है एम्प्लॉय को काम करने को, वो ले लीजिए. आपने अगर सेलफोन राइट्स दिए थे वो रिवोक कर दीजिए. अगर आपने उसको डेटा कोई हैंड ओवर किया था कंपनी का सेंसिटिव, वो ले लीजिए. इफ ऑल ऑफ दिस कैन बी डन इंश्योर्ड, देन वेल एंड गुड. इफ द एम्प्लॉय वाज अंडर अ बॉन्ड और अ कॉन्ट्रैक्ट, देन आप वो सारा बॉन्ड या कॉन्ट्रैक्ट के अंदर अगर लिखा होगा कि आपने एम्प्लॉय को कोई ट्रेनिंग दिया है, वो ट्रेनिंग का कॉस्ट लिखा होगा, आप वो कॉस्ट रिकवर करने के लिए एम्प्लॉय को बोल सकते हैं. आप एम्प्लॉय को एट टाइम्स किसी मार्केट कॉम्पिटिटर, एक्स पर्टिकुलर मार्केट कॉम्पिटिटर के पास जाने से रोक सकते हैं. ऑल दिस कैन बी डन प्रोवाइडेड देयर इज प्रायर डॉक्यूमेंटेशन क्रिएटेड टू दैट इफेक्ट. अगर नहीं होगा तो यू हैव नो राइट्स अगेंस्ट दिस.
What does the waiver of parallel jurisdiction means?
Ma'am, could you repeat it? There was some cracking in the line. I couldn't hear you clearly.
Waiver of parallel jurisdictions.
Okay. Waiver of parallel jurisdictions was a clause that we covered. I have got it on my screen again for you guys. So I'll give you an example. Suppose Reliance, which is headquartered in Bombay, enters into a contract with BGR, which is headquartered in Chennai. तो दोनों जगह के पास jurisdiction है, दोनों कोर्ट्स के पास jurisdiction है. रिलायंस बोलेगा बॉम्बे के कोर्ट में झगड़ते हैं, बीजीआर बोलेगा चेन्नई के कोर्ट में झगड़ते हैं, और जुरिस्डिक्शन क्लॉज में डिसाइड ही नहीं हो पाया था किसके पास जुरिस्डिक्शन है. तो वेवर करना है कि हाँ, भले ही दोनों कोर्ट के पास जुरिस्डिक्शन है, लेकिन बीजीआर अपना हक टू अप्रोच चेन्नई छोड़ रहा है. ये होता है वेवर ऑफ पैरेलल जुरिस्डिक्शन. व्हेन 1-to-1 कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स हैपन विद इंश्योरेंस कंपनीज या 1-to-1 कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स हैपन ऑन अ लार्ज स्केल बेसिस, वहां पे वेवर ऑफ पैरेलल जुरिस्डिक्शंस कम्स इनटू प्ले. सोचिए, फॉर एग्जांपल, अगर आपके पास वेवर नहीं होगा तो इंश्योरेंस कंपनी, एक ही कंपनी 10 जगह जाके झगड़ेगी क्या? पॉसिबल नहीं है. इसलिए वेवर आता है वहां पे. दैट इज वेवर. वेवर इज मैं मेरे उस कोर्ट में जाने के हक छोड़ रहा हूं. दैट इज वेवर ऑफ पैरेलल जुरिस्डिक्शंस.
Important points in non-disclosure agreement.
Important points in non-disclosure agreement are कब आप what is confidential information, पहले उसको डिफाइन करना है, and what will not be confidential information वो डिफाइन करना है. Then आता है what if a request from a law enforcement authority, आपको वो डिसाइड करना है. And then आपको ये डिसाइड करना है कि इसको छोड़ के अगर कुछ होता है, अगर गलती से डेटा लीक होता है, what are the steps? अगर डेटा लीक कंट्रोल नहीं हो सकता है, what are the steps? डेटा कौन कौन से एम्प्लॉयज को एक्सेस दिया जा रहा है, what are the steps? All this is usually covered in a non-disclosure agreement. And then comes आपका एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट नॉन डिस्क्लोजर से रिलेटेड पॉइंट जो हमने पहले भी कवर किया था, परमिटेड डिस्क्लोजर. क्या होगा इसमें से, कौन कौन सा डेटा मैं किस किस को डिस्क्लोज कर सकता हूं. दैट इज नॉन डिस्क्लोजर एंड परमिटेड डिस्क्लोजर एंड कॉन्फिडेंशियलिटी. ये तीनों टर्म्स हमेशा साथ में आएंगे हमारे. दैट इज रिलेटेड क्लॉजेस. In case of contract, ma'am, I've got a query in the chat box. I'm dealing with that. In case of a contract agreement where staff is working under supervision and deployed at client's place, any clause can be entered into to safeguard. Housekeeping agency. Sir, हम लोगों ने, I don't know who's raised this query. CA Sarveena Mandviya madam has forwarded it to me. I'm coming back to this particular clause यहाँ पे हमने एक स्टाफ ऑग्यूमेंटेशन कॉन्ट्रैक्ट का एग्जांपल हमने कहीं तो भी कवर किया था मेरे इसमें। ये स्टाफ ऑग्यूमेंटेशन कॉन्ट्रैक्ट आईटी इंडस्ट्री में 1 में सी में हमने कवर किया था। दिस इज अ वेरी स्टैंडर्ड अग्रीमेंट। 99.9% ऑफ द टाइम्स हाउसकीपिंग एजेंसीज के पास ये स्टाफ ऑग्यूमेंटेशन अग्रीमेंट्स जो होते हैं ये तैयार होते हैं। स्टाफ की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी किसको होगी, रिपोर्टिंग किसको होगा और कौन क्या करेगा, ये सब इस स्टाफ ऑग्यूमेंटेशन में आता है। रेगुलर पेमेंट करना पड़ेगा। पेमेंट विल हैव टू बी डन टू द प्रिंसिपल एम्प्लॉयर, जो एम्प्लॉयज को देगा। एम्प्लॉयज को नहीं मिला तो उसकी जिम्मेदारी किसकी रहेगी, ये सब कुछ उस स्टाफ ऑग्यूमेंटेशन कॉन्ट्रैक्ट में आता है। सो दीज आर ऑल द स्टैंडर्ड अग्रीमेंट के कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स बिटवीन अ स्टाफ ऑग्यूमेंटेशन एजेंसी। सो दिस इज ऑल अ पार्ट ऑफ द स्टाफ ऑग्यूमेंटेशन।
Another query, sir, whether wills need to be registered in any government department?
It is registered with the sub registrar of properties for same, जहां पे आप सेल डीड रजिस्टर करेंगे, गिफ्ट डीड रजिस्टर करेंगे, सेम ऑफिस में हमेशा विल रजिस्टर होगी।
Okay. Can a will be challenged if property mentioned in will is not property title from all owners to the person making will?
Yes, will is challengeable अगर will को प्रॉपर्टी दी जा रही है जो उसकी है ही नहीं, which is very common sense. We had discussed common sense is a very essential part of all business contracts. Will में वो challenge होगा ही होगा, absolutely correct है वहाँ पे।
Last query, sir, agreement between society and housekeeping agency.
We covered that, ma'am, already. Staff augmentation contract है essentially agreement between a society and a housekeeping agency. So वो उसके standard staff keeping contracts में सारे clauses आएंगे।
Okay, thank you, sir.
I believe we have covered all the queries, right, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
So I have exceeded only by 2 minutes. We are at 5:02.
Thank you, sir. I'm sure all of us would have very insightful learning from you. You covered the question answer session very wonderfully, and now we are in a better position. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Now, our next topic of the day is how to master GST. I am sure at the end of the deliberation, we will have a thorough understanding of GST law, which will be helpful in practical life. The speaker of the day is C. Praveen Sharma. I would like to introduce C. Praveen Sharma, our second speaker of the day. C. Praveen Sharma is a fellow member of ICI, qualified in 2009 and has reached qualification of BCom, MCom, LLB, Diploma in IFRS, Fraud and Forensic Audit, Certified Anti-Money Laundering, Specialized Independent Certified Independent Director. He is also appointed as a special invitee to the IDTC of ICAI. He has contributed a knowledge sharing platform to the professional in the public forum in the name of GST Mantra. He is recognized faculty of ICAI of indirect taxes. He addressed certificate and advanced courses of ICAI and other institute or GST, besides addressing study circles and other forums of trade and professionals. He has provided GST training to officers of 32 states and union territories and to CBIC officers. He has delivered more than 500 seminars, webinars on various platforms. We are very glad to have you, sir, on our forum. Now, floor is all yours. Please continue, sir.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Moderator, ma'am. And thank you, the CP committee, the chairman, sir, vice chairman, sir, and all the teams of the committee that given me an opportunity to discuss about, again, the important topic in the GST, how to master in GST. It's a very, very broader topic given to me, masters in GST. So 5 years now, 2017 to 2022, mastery is not a guarantee right now. I'm not a master. I'm not a master, I'm a student master, meaning that I have the knowledge of a master and the expertise of a master, but I'm still learning as a student. As far as my knowledge is concerned, the topic is in a broader view. So how to mastery in the GST? I hope I will deliver my lectures in a very efficient and effective way. Not a PPT, just note down with your pen on a piece of paper the underlying points and the most important points that can be taken over or taken care of to discuss, that we have discussed, that we will discuss in a matter in relation to the create mastery in the GST. So repetition creates the master. Who creates the master? Repetition creates the master. You have to repeat yourself on a daily basis with the case digest, with the daily news, with the daily advanced ruling, the daily news that coming from the each and every newspaper, daily digest, daily newsletters, and maintain or correlate with the provisions, the rules in force. A true master gives all his knowledge, but only when the student is ready. So if you are ready enough to create or maintain the mastery in the GST, the most important point, firstly, I'm taking as a topic of the GST basics. First, I'm considering the GST basics. I hope my student can be from the job or can be from the practice all over India. I welcome you all with this today's topic, but I can't confirm that with these words I have prepared. I hope so you will create the mastery in this subject. GST. What does it mean? What does it mean? The full form of GST, what does it mean? I've heard somewhere in the department, the board printed as the goods and service tax. What is the correct interpretation? Is again an important one. What is the correct interpretation? It's the goods and services tax 2017. Services, not a service, it's a services tax. It can be on the goods or it can be on the services. It's a one nation, one tax principle laid down by the government of India. It was implemented with effect from 1st of July 2017. Right now, we are heading towards under the 5 years. It's a uniform tax system as per the government, as per the department. But in these 5 years, so many hurdles, so many compliances, so many returns, ups, downs, so many mismatches, errors, rectification, revocation, COVID period comes, then again filing of the returns of the previous periods. Then there is a genuine hardship with the SSC or the taxpayer who has filed the return or who has paid the taxes in a very honest manner. Those honest taxpayer has paid the taxes of say 1 lakh of rupees, and those who were defaulted in payment of the taxes for the 2 years previous of the COVID period, they are paying only the 10,000 of amount say. It's very genuine hardship to that particular taxpayer. It's again, they are creating in such a way, it's a uniform tax system. It removes, obviously, it removes the cascading effect of the taxes. Obviously, pre-GST, in the pre-GST regime, VAT can be levied on the excise duty, but the credit will not be available to the VAT dealer. But now the GST is altogether the proper or the only chain comes in the GST is the input tax credit. So input tax credit is passed on from the supplier to the buyer. Say A sold the goods to the buyer, B sold goods to the C, and the C sold goods to the D. Then the A pass on the credit to the B, and the B takes or avail that credit to pay off his or her liability. Similarly for the C and similarly for the D. It's a uniform tax system, remove the cascading effect of the taxes. GST, it's all together, it's India accepting or India has accepted the Canadian model, based on the Canadian model. So under the Article 279 of the Constitution of India, the Finance Minister is the chairman of the GST Council, which is the GST law implemented wide from the 101 Constitution Amendment Act 2016, and the President approved that GST bill on the 8th of September 2016. So this is the basics of the GST, which you and me must have the knowledge. Similarly, also, the India has, or you can say, started this GST on the recommendation of the Kelkar Committee. Must be noted down. On the Kelkar Committee recommendation, the GST task force has been created, and you have that particular a strong GST system. So right now, 5 years has been passed. So many SOPs, so many circulars, so many clarification has come. Very, or you can say the law is this and the notification is this. So notification, circulars, rules, SOPs are part of the law, but it's a very bigger than the law. Notification has come as because India accepted the GST system in a very you can say in a hurry way. There are so many upside downs, so many business, so many facts and circumstances prevail in the country. So it takes time from the government perspective to maintain or ease the GST so that efficient and effective compliance is to be done by the taxable person. Right now, GSTN, the Goods and Service Tax Network, through which you can file or register yourself as a GST registered taxable person. You are filing return through this portal, which is the www.gst.gov.in. Now, the mastery creates from what? Mastery creates from what? Start learning with the daily case laws, daily case digest, the daily ruling. One advanced ruling is different from advanced ruling on the same matters, but you have or you will have the knowledge of or the underlying facts of the case. For example, in the VKC Footsteps Private Limited, the input service refund was granted by the Honorable High Court as per the provisions under the Gst Act. Who or the, who will receive or who will receive the refund? Who will take care of the refund? Refund is only being granted to the exporter. Exporter means export with GST or export without GST of the goods or services or both. The first category is the exporter who is eligible for the refund under the GST first. Second is the taxable person is dealing in such goods that are covered under the inverted duty structure. For example, I am manufacturing shoes. The rate of raw material or accessories using in that particular shoes is taxable at the rate of 18%. But I'm selling at say rupees 999, which is taxable at a 5%. I'm taking this example before 1st of January 2022 because afterwards there is a rate of 12% now. So 18% comes and 5% goes out. So there is a difference of the input tax credit, which is eligible for a refund in a case of inverted duty structure. But here, the word defined as the input of the goods or services. Input services is not defined under this definition. if I have the input tax credit in the form of the input services, I'm not eligible for refund as per the provisions under the GST Act. And similarly, the Honorable High Court, in the case of the VKC footstep, denying the matter and granting of the refund in case of input services also. Because if I've paid the taxes in the case of the input services, I'm eligible for that refund. Pallavi ma'am, I am not sharing any of the presentation right now because the topic delivered to me in such a way that I have to put in such a way or write in such a way that pointing out the point so that our reader can point it out their point on a piece of paper. I'm not sharing any presentation. So we are here on the part of the input services. I'm eligible for a refund as per the Honorable High Court, but the Honorable Supreme Court decided or held that the input services is not covered under the inputs under the provision of section 54 of the Act, that under the taxable person selling or supplying goods or services under the inverted duty structure is not eligible for a refund. There are many taxable persons. Say I'm supplying through e-commerce operator, I'm paying commission, I'm paying freight, GST is chargeable at the rate of 18%, and that the credit accumulated and put in a credit ledger, which is the blockage of my working capital, and that credit is not eligible for a refund for me. So basically, whenever your client comes or any of you are taking any opinion in relation to the refund matters, in the case of the inverted duty structure, input service refund is not to be granted as per the provision in force and as per the VKC footstep case as decided by the Honorable Supreme Court. This is one of the scenario. This is one of the scenario where you can watch or create mastery in the refund. For a refund, the circular 125, which is called as the master circular. Further amendment through circular number 147, where you can find what are the documents to be attached with their refund application. So refund application number is the RFD 01. What are the documents to be attached on what type of a refund in the case of a refund application filed on the GST portal? There are so many cases: accumulated ITC refund, inverted duty structure refund, excess payment of the GST, and many other cases. On the place of supply difference, you have paid the CGST, SGST, but the actual GST would be the high GST. So whenever you have paid any excess credit, you can take the refund. So one question come, I will discuss in a later stage. Now the process starts on the GST portal is through the GST registration, right? How you will create the mastery in this GST registration? How you will create the mastery? Firstly, read the section 22, 23 and the 24. You will find it. Section 22 deals about the threshold limit for granting of the registration. Threshold limit. If you are supplying any goods, the threshold limit is 20 lakhs. If you are supplying any services, threshold limit is 10 lakhs. But there is a proviso inserted in such a way that the state or the union territory can increase the threshold limit from 20 lakhs to 40 lakhs and from 10 lakhs to 20 lakhs. So at present, in Delhi or Bombay, or you can say the bigger cities, say Karnataka, that the GST registration limit, threshold limit is 40 lakhs for the goods or services. For goods, 40 lakhs for the goods, it's an aggregate turnover. Aggregate turnover, you have to check on a pan-India basis, right? If you have multiple branches under one pan, combine all the turnover on a pan-India basis, on a one pan, if aggregate threshold limit crosses, in the case of a goods 40 lakhs, then you have to take a GST registration and charge GST on your invoice. Similarly, 20 lakhs limit is for the services. In some state, they are limit 20 or 10. Now you can check, there are so many notifications, 40 lakhs, 20 lakhs, 10 lakhs, depending upon the state or the union territory, from where you are supplying taxable. Point to be noted down. You are selling or you are supplying taxable goods or services. For example, in Delhi, you are supplying taxable goods, taxable on which GST is liable at a GST rate, say 18%. In UP, you are supplying goods which are exempted from the GST, right? For example, the milk, the curd. So in one state, you are supplying taxable goods. Another state, you are supplying exempted goods. So they are taxable goods, they are exempted goods. But for calculating the threshold limit, combine these two amounts and check the threshold limit, 40 lakhs for the goods. But registration can only be taken from where you are supplying taxable goods, say Delhi state, but not the UP state. You have to take registration only in the Delhi state, but not the UP state. So section 22 defines in such a way. Section 23, you are exclusively in the exempted goods or services. Then you don't require any GST registration. So 22 tell us about, first check the aggregate turnover on a pan-India basis, then check the taxable goods, then check from where you are supplying the taxable goods or services, take that registration in that particular state or the union territory. And if you are supplying or exclusively supplying the exempted goods or services, then don't require any registration. Simple as it. Moving to section 24 of the GST Act, which the starting point says, notwithstanding anything contained in any other provision of this act. It means above, say 22 or 23. Notwithstanding anything contained in section 22 or 23, चाहे कुछ भी कहा गया हो, हिंदी में कहते हैं चाहे कुछ भी कहा गया हो, आ जाओ यहां पे. If you are an e-commerce operator, you have to take GST registration. If you are supplying through e-commerce operator, you have to take GST registration. And if you are covered under the RCM, for example, you have received any advocate fees, you have received any legal fees, you are paying to any advocates, you are paying to any GTA, you are covered under the reverse charge mechanism and you have to take GST registration irrespective, telling about the section 22 and 23, irrespective. So this is the GST registration where you have to create mastery or looking for under the section 22, 23 and 24. Note it down, please. Moving to GST rates. How you will find the GST rates? On the GST portal or the CBIC portal. Basically, you have to check the classification of the goods or services you are dealing or your client is dealing. Interpret it with the English dictionary, interpret it with the legal dictionary, interpret it with the previous advanced ruling, interpret with the uniform practices prevailing at the point of time, interpret with the pre-GST regime. Or if you are not finding any GST rate or GST rate finder, or you are not able to find any HSN code or the SSC code, take the advanced ruling. Take the advanced ruling, put your question and ask from the department, sir, what will be the GST rates that I am selling or supplying any goods or services? These are the goods or services from which we are selling, and what will be the GST rate? Ask from the advanced ruling. So correct classification is necessary criteria because it will affect the taxability. Our chairman, sir, Adukia sir, rightly pointed out at the beginning of this webinar, today's webinar, that say 100 rupees of a sale, 18% is the GST. So comes to 18 rupees. But income tax is levy on the profit element. Say the profit element is 10 and the taxable rate is 30%. So 3 rupees will be the income tax, which is the most significant criteria you have to check in the financial statement is the trading account. The GST significance, it will create huge impact. If the correct classification is not done, it will create huge impact on the working capital in the future. Correct classification is mandatory, and also with effect from 1st of April 2021, 4-digit HSN code is mandatory to be put on your invoice and on your GSTR1 if your aggregate turnover is up to 5 crores of rupees, and if your aggregate turnover exceeds than 5 crore rupees, put the 6-digit HSN code. And if you are exporter, then 8-digit HSN code is mandatory for you to put in your GST returns and the GST invoice. Moving ahead. So we have covered the basics, the GST registration and the GST rates or the HSN codes. GST invoice system. GST invoice system, basically I'm covering with the accounting and records. You have to keep your accounting records within 6 years from the due date of the annual return. So the due date of annual return of financial year 17-18 is, anyone can put? The due date of annual return of financial year 17-18 was, it's 7th of February 2020. So basically the adjudication proceeding or the show cause notice proceeding under section 73 or 74 will also be extended in such a way that 3 years from the due date of the annual return or 5 years from the due date of annual return, you will receive the notice. You can be received. Similarly, you have to keep retention of your accounts and records 6 years from the due date of the annual return. Mastery comes when you are regularly follow-ups, regularly keep momentum high with your learning. RRR. I'm not telling about the movie. It's reading, reading, and reading. Reading, reading, and reading. So, moving ahead, GST invoice system. Today, if your turnover exceeds, say, I'm right now on the 1st of April 2022. What will be the changes? If your aggregate turnover exceeds 20 crores of rupees on a pan-India basis, and you are not covered under the exception, point to be noted, if you are selling or supplying any goods or services having the aggregate turnover exceeds 20 crores of rupees in any of the financial year from 17-18, 18-19, 19-20, 20-21, अगर 31st March से पहले, if your aggregate turnover exceeds 20 crores in any of the financial year for 17-18, take the aggregate turnover with effect from 1st of July 2017. So 17-18, or 18-19, 19-20, 20-21. Then you are covered under the e-invoice system with effect from 1st of April 2022. And if your aggregate turnover is not exceed 20 crores of rupees in any of the financial year, these financial year, that you are not eligible for the e-invoice system. Now, what are the exceptions? You are under the GTA category, you are under the rent-a-cap category, you are a banker, you are an insurance agency, you are goods or services supplying to SEZ unit, then you are not eligible for the e-invoicing. The main thing criteria of the e-invoicing is you are supplying taxable goods or services to the in a B2B transaction, not B2C. In the case of a B2C, dynamic QR code to be applied if your aggregate turnover exceeds 5 crore rupees. So B2C 500 crores, B2B 20 crores of rupees. The system is same any of the financial year. Moving ahead, GST returns. You are mastery enough in filing of the GST return from 1st of July 17 to till date. You have created the mastery. But still, 99C is not filing in such a way that means that returns are filed in a corrected way. Say today is 2022. 1st of April 2022, e-invoicing criteria is 20 crores of rupees. 2023, e-invoice criteria will be 10 crores of rupees. 2025, e-invoice criteria again, it can be reduced to 5 crore rupees, or it can be saying that for each and every taxable person, e-invoice is mandatory. It is basically the agenda of the GST Council that within a short span of a time, say 2 to 3 years, e-invoicing will be compulsory for all. If e-invoicing is compulsory, data automatically populate to the GSTR1 itself. Return is being prepared, GSTR1. The point of the error is at the time of maintaining the books of account itself. Create the mastery in implementation of the ERP system surrounding yourself. Create the mastery. If you're having the client, say turnover 10 crores rupees, maximum people will be covered under the invoicing criteria, and the ERP system will be the huge opportunity available to the professionals to maintain the ERP system, to given training for preparing the e-invoice system. Basically, whenever any e-invoice is being prepared, then the data flow to the GSTR1, not a huge task to file the GSTR1 by the professional. Only the consultancy will prevail after 2 years. You have to create mastery in the consultancy. You have to create mastery in the classification of the goods or services. You have to create mastery in the litigation itself. You have to create mastery in the ERP implementation. Create it. Otherwise, all the process, these compliances or these written process will go on one hand of the ERP implementation, another will go on to the litigation or consultancy part. If you have any question relating to the GST return, you can put it. So GST 99C, I'm dealing GST and 99C. There are ups, down, on which table we are putting the information, on which table we will put the information. Basically, the criteria is, you can say, I'm differentiate the GSTR9 in two categories. For example, I'm filing GSTR9 for the period 21-22. For example, 100 rupees of the turnover on which tax or the turnover 80 rupees, tax on 80 rupees is paid in 21-22 and 20 rupees tax is paid in or will be paid in 22-23. So if you are having the GSTR 9, then 80 rupees will come to the GST table number 4 and 9 of the GSTR 9, and 20 rupees will go to the table number 10 or 14 of the GSTR 9. What does it mean? Basically, the GSTR 9 is altogether checks the GSTR 3B. जिस पीरियड का आप GSTR 3B फाइल कर रहे हो, उस पीरियड के अंदर जो आपने टैक्स पे किया, whatever you have paid, the tax paid in that particular year itself, put in GSTR, put in table number 4 and table number 9 of the GSTR 9. And whenever you are making payment in succeeding year, then put in table number 10 or 14 itself. Similarly for the ITC. Mastery comes when you are maintaining the reconciliation. Mastery comes when you are maintaining or matching the GSTR 1 and GSTR 3B. Mastery comes when you are maintaining or reconciliation through the software itself. You must have the proper accounting or the reporting software if you are not having, but you can prepare or reconcile in such a way in the form of the Excel itself, but it takes time. As and when the client grows, you have to purchase or maintain that particular records in the software itself so that easily reporting will come. Say you have the Tally, so you have the BZ, you have the ClearTax, or you have any other taxation system, taxation software, you have Compu or SAG. Maintaining data is the proper, maintaining data in a proper way is again the important task right now. If you maintain the proper data, proper filing is necessary, timely filing or reporting is necessary, then there will be no any issue in regard to the compliances. But there can be issues with regard to the significance, with the classification, with the place of supply differences, with the litigative issue, for example, the input services refund, etc. Some of the student is having the issues in the composition scheme. So basically the composition scheme is for the manufacturer, for the restaurant, for the service category. For a manufacturer, the composition rate is 1%. For the restaurant is the 5%. For the services is the 6%. You can't avail the input tax credit. You have to raise the bill of supply. Whenever you are moving from composition to regular, if you have any stock underlying stock on which input tax credit is there, you have to reverse it or pay it. Balance input tax credit will remain lapse. But now you are opting in the composition, you have to apply before the 31st March of 2022 if you are applying for the 22 or 23. Basically, the first thing is that put all the forms at one place on your dashboard or on your board itself. These are the forms: ITC1, ITC02, ITC03, ITC04, PMT1, PMT2, PMT3, PMT4. But most important thing, what is the important highlight this? ITC1, ITC2 is the important form from all the ITC forms. DRC03, you have to, you can say, learn how to file DRC03. It's an important form. Each and every 2B file, each and every member can will file, because notices will come, SOP is being generated, scrutiny of the return will come in the future, say about 2 to 3 years. Then the DRC03, you must pay the taxes to DRC03. Mastery comes when you have summarized all these things in a piece of paper and put on your dashboard, on your table. Learning, 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 or reading, 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 you have to create in such a scenario. ITC, chain of the GST ruling from ITC point to the ITC point to the ITC point. A sold goods to B, B sold goods to C, C sold goods to D. And if A is a bogus dealer, then recovery would be initiated in case of a B. A से तो निकालेंगे ही, B के against भी recovery initiated. But B is also a bogus dealer. Then recovery can be initiated against C. But C supplying actual goods or services to the D, but he has purchased the goods or services in a bogus manner, then this is also called as the fraudulent intention, bogus purchasing. Heard you? You have heard that there is a bogus sale or bogus purchases. Both can be possible. So recovery can be initiated from the B, recovery can be initiated from C, recovery can be initiated from D. Now you are telling that some notices has come, supplier is bogus, or the supplier has not correctly filed their GSTR1, thereby credit is not reflecting in my GSTR2A. Credit is being denied to me. Credit will not be available to me. As per the ASMT 10, notices will come. Pre-scrutiny notice will come. And I have not paid the taxes or filed my reply in ASMT 11. Then the notice will come under section 73 or 74. And that will say there is a difference in GSTR 3B and GSTR 2A. Pay it within a period of say 30 days. Now what will be your reply? There is a case of the Kerala High Court, or in the case of the Kolkata High Court, LGW Industry and DY Bethel. Put it down. In the case of a DY Bethel and LGW Industry, in both the cases, and also the Honorable Supreme Court has also decided in the case of the Arise India Limited that the buyer will not be held responsible for the fault of the supplier or the seller. If the seller or the supplier has not paid the taxes and the buyer has purchased the goods in the good faith, then the buyer will not be held responsible for paying the GST. right? But the scenario is, the practical scenario is, department is not concerning or is not concerned about the supplier or the seller who is supplying the goods or services to the recipient. They are recovering the taxes from the recipient also. For this perspective, because seller has gone, he is not traceable. In this budget 2022, in this year budget 2022, section 37 is being introduced, substituted the new section, and basically pointed out that if you are a new registrant, then the credit will deny to you on a prescribed time basis. If you have purchased the goods from any of the supplier where the GST 1 or GST 3B difference is there, if you have purchased any goods or services from any of the respective registered supplier where the 3B or 2A is the difference, it means 3B is more than 2A. It means GSTR 1 is more than GSTR 3B. It means for the new registrant, for example, say 60 days or 90 days, credit will not be available to you. There are so many conditions are there. Most important condition in section 16 2C is the tax must be paid by the supplier. Guma fira karke, all the point will come under the section 16(2)(c). Basically, the important task nowadays, 5 years gone, but still you have to create mastery in presenting or drafting the reply in such a manner that you will suffice the case, you will suffice the reply along with your evidence that these are the invoices on which credit is available to me. I have paid the taxes with the ledger account, with the payment mode, with the account paid checks, with the e-way bill. So whenever you have moved the goods, e-way bill is necessary. Next, the invoice, right? So invoice must be there, the payment through the legal channel must be there, e-way bill for the goods movement must be there, stock in, stock out register can also be proved from that also. And with these case laws. So basically these are the main point from which you can create the mastery, summarize in such a way from past half an hour that we have discussed, that the proper system of accounting, proper system of reporting, reconciliation between the GSTR 3B and GSTR 1, reconciliation between the 2A and the 3B on a monthly basis, reconciliation between the e-way bills and the GSTR 1, and if you have received any goods or services from any of the supplier on which e-invoicing system is applicable, check on the e-invoice portal whether these GSTN would cover under the e-invoice system, and if that particular supplier has not raised any invoice or the IRN number is not printed on that particular invoice, then the credit will deny to you under Rule 48. Next one. Reading. Proper reading in such a way, authenticate reading in such a way. Many websites are there from which you can read yourself. You can check or subscribe any particular newsletter, daily digest, daily news. Similarly, I have the habit in the morning that one advance ruling must be, and this will be and maintain this habit for in a regular way, so that you have to create mastery in a particular subject, any of the subject, GST or income tax, whatever may be, but any of the subject, read the case laws, read the advanced ruling, or read the news or daily digest or any of the article from which you can correlate the particular rules, particular section also. Any of your questions in relation to any of the topic of the GST or any of the reconciliation, you can ask.
So we have, thank you for the wonderful, insightful deliberation. I'm sure we all have learned so much from you.
Moderator ma'am, I have one question on the screen.
Yes,
There should one column of tax only rather than SGST, CGST, IGST, or it should be IGST or SGST. Second question is, first question I can answer, one column of tax only. The queries has not put in a correct way. One column for tax only, for a challan, for an invoice, or under the return, there are as many as column as particular of the GST rate. The SGST is there, CGST is there, IGST is there, 5% is there, 12% is there, 18% is there. Second question is GST registration required for exclusively supply of only exempted or unrelated supply if turnover is more than 20 crores? Sir, section 22 deals with the threshold limit. If your turnover exceeds, you have to take the registration. Section 23 deals with in such a way that if you are supplying any exempted goods or services, irrespective of the threshold limit, then you don't require any GST registration. So in your second question, registration is not required in your case, but if the exempted supply of goods is say 30 crores of rupees and 1000 will be the taxable goods you are selling, then you have to take registration for that particular 1000. For example, petrol is outside the purview of the GST, but the GST is levy on the lubricating oil. Petrol sale is 100 crores of rupees, but the lubricating oil sale is 10 crores of rupees. Total turnover is 110 crores of rupees. You have to take registration only and only because of the lubricating oil, which is the taxable goods you are selling, and you are selling petrol in Haryana and selling lubricating oil in Karnataka, then you have to take registration only in Karnataka state, not in Haryana. Right? Any other question, ma'am?
Yes, sir. We are a GST exempt Section 8 government company. We have received an invoice from a manpower agency wherein GST number is invalid as he has been a defaulter. Should we pay the base amount or reject the invoice and ask vendor to get GST activated and raise a new invoice?
Firstly, the proper accounting starts to check the invoice system. You have rightly pointed out that first check the invoice on which you are availing any credit or you are paying any taxes to the supplier. Checks that particular GSTN is active or not. Check whether these suppliers are having actual presence or not. Under the GST portal, there is an option, search taxpayer option, where you can put the GST number and check whether this particular supplier is active, cancelled, or suspended. If he or she is suspended or a cancelled dealer, then reject that particular invoice. And if he is active dealer, then pay the taxes and take the credit, and tell your supplier to file your return on or before the due date so that correct credit, timely credit will be available to you in your 2A so that you can take this credit in your GSTR 3.
Thank you, sir. Here's one more query. How to regularly update with new AR and case laws, means from where to get good AR and the case laws.
For the AR, advanced ruling, you are mentioning, there's a particular website of the state government also, specific website of the GST Council also, from where you can find the latest advanced ruling. If you are from Delhi, Karnataka, West Bengal, Maharashtra, Gujarat, specific website of your commercial taxes department is there, from where you can find the latest advanced ruling. It's already free itself. You can watch it anytime, any mode. And for the daily digest, daily news, you can refer the daily newspapers, the Business Times, Economic Times, and the daily news, daily article from any of the authenticated websites, say Taxman, say Tax Guru, or any other website. I have my only also GST Mitra. From many websites are there in the market. Ask with your respective or professional colleague, or you can ask me also. My number is 9871530610. Again repeating, 9871530610. You can ask anytime, any of your query, any of your news, daily digest, or the advanced ruling is. It's all thing. Everything is free. Even the Gujarat ruling or the Honorable Gujarat High Court ruling is there on the YouTube itself. After the COVID, you can find it anywhere.
Thank you, sir. That's one question. Thank you for wonderfully addressing the question
so much,
and sharing your contact details so that the participant may connect with you.
Yes.
And now, formally, I would like, on the behalf of CACP committee, I would like to thank the chairman, vice chairman, speaker for very insightful and wonderful deliberation, and all the interactive participants for making the session interactive and for their patience listening. With this, we formally come to the end. Thank you all and have a great day ahead.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir, for your valuable time.
Thank you.